like anything with dreams, there has to have time invested into it over a long period of time, because you only have so much time to tap into that space. There has to be a conscious effort into recognizing who you are in that space, what that space is, what those challenges are within the dream space, and how to transcend those challenges as they get more and more complex over time. This comes from years and years of experience in tapping into this space. I would consider myself an expert in the dream realm, given that I've been dreaming consciously since I was 2 years old, and I'll be 40 next month. So I have dreams that I've remembered and experiences that I've remembered 38 years ago. That's a lot of experience to have with one situation. It's an entire world that I've been in communication with for a very long time. And there's a lot of things that you can learn. There's a lot of things that you could teach yourself. There's a lot of lessons to be learned, not only from yourself, but from your ancestors, from the realm itself, experiences that you can have in dreams that you can't have anywhere else. I was just explaining to a friend of mine how you transcend, how you grow in that space, because you're growing in the physical reality, but you're also growing in the non-physical reality and your relationship to the non-physical reality. It takes a little bit more focus to grow in the non-physical reality from the physical space, but it is exponential once you tap into that space. And like I've explained in previous videos in reference to the limitations within the emotional body in the dream space or the subconscious reality. And it's not even, I can't even use that word or that term, the subconscious reality, anymore, because like I was just sharing with a friend of mine, the dream space is not limited to something just called a dream. It's more complex. You have layers of dreams. You have dreams where it's just your subconscious communicating with you, like you're just in that space to work with internal stuff. But the dream space isn't a singular place. It isn't like you're going to work or something. It's not a singular job. I want to say it's like going to a mall or something, and each location in that mall is a different type, but you're in that realm. The dream space, the sleep space from your physical reality, is the realm of interacting with all these other potentialities. So you have the ability to communicate with yourself, your subconscious. You have the ability to communicate with the earth or whatever realm you're tapping into. You can communicate with living family members. You can communicate with non-living family members. You can visit different places. You can see different parts of yourself in the physical reality. You can see different parts of yourself in the non-physical reality. And the point with this video that I want to get across is that each one of those experiences is not just a dream. Like I've shared with language itself, the language can be a limitation. And in reference to dreams, the word dream is a limitation because it's not giving you the reality of the access points and how complex they are. Because you're still you. You have that singular you. This is the you that you come back to in the physical reality. But the you in the non-physical is infinitely more complex than this you that is in this physical reality. This is why we can only access and tap into that more complex dream space in spurts and a lower level of consciousness. Lower as in not worse. Lower in a sense that if you had too much of your conscious, linear is a good way to explain it, because I explain the dream space as non-linear. If you have too much linear going on, you won't be able to tap into or experience the depths of that non-linear lesson that you're tapping into, or whatever it is. You won't be able to tap into it if you have too much conscious linearity going on, because once you bring that into a non-linear subconscious experience, you make that experience unstable and you break it. You break the dream, you break the experience, because now you have too much of you, the linear you, trying to conceptualize or grab onto something that's non-linear. So this dream space access point is allowing you to grow more, to grow faster, to grow in a more complex way if you tap into it. And this is why dreams as a whole are so avoided, and there's so many distractions away from it. And I've said in previous videos that the expansion or the pushing of cannabis in the Western world is a part of this keeping you away from your dreams concept. Because, and this is not to say that there's something wrong with cannabis. I'm totally for the medicinal capabilities of cannabis, even the non-medicinal, the chill kind of vibe, that whole stuff, that's all beneficial. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there are side effects to cannabis overall that have been scientifically proven to disrupt parts of your sleep cycle. And your sleep cycle, if it's disrupted in any way, will affect your dreams. And like I said before, you only have so much time in your dreams to do certain things. So anything that's taking away from that is going to be taken away from your growth on every level. So that's just something to be aware of if you're looking into dreams and smoking cannabis or ingesting cannabis in any kind of way. It is going to affect you in some kind of way. And there are other things that affect you in this way with the same intensity, if not more. And one of those are the susceptibility to the emotional body. So like I've said in previous videos about dreams, and I'll get to the new concept that I'm getting ready to share. It's not necessarily new, but it's kind of like a new to me on this channel, sharing with everybody sort of thing. I've shared in previous videos that the emotional body has been proven to keep you away from going into deeper layers of the dream space. A proof of this is that when you're a kid, kids have a lot of problems with nightmares. And this is because it's your subconscious keeping you away from going into the depths of your subconscious, which are extreme. They can be extreme. So if you do not have a good sense of self, which a child doesn't yet, they're completely reliant on their parent to provide protection, safety, and anything else involving their survival. So they are codependent on somebody else. But when you're in your dream space, you're with yourself. You are the everything that you need. But when you have such an extreme contrast to that in the physical reality, it's difficult to tap into that off the bat. You need some experience to know that you're by yourself and to know that you can't be harmed in a way in that space. And that takes time and time and time. So this is why kids go through those nightmares, because they're training themselves to have a deeper sense of self and have a deeper awareness of the world or the realm that they're experiencing. So the emotional body is like a universal language. Kids have these emotional, children view the world through an emotional eye, in a sense. They're very empathic. They're very dialed in, tapped into their surroundings. They can feel everything. So it's going to make the subconscious dream space even more difficult to hold, let alone go into deeper. So one of what I explained to a friend of mine, rites of passage is to get through the emotional body. And that lasts for your entire life, because, and I'll share how that is too, because there are layers to this. So the first sort of rite of passage that you're going to interact with or get through as a child is going to be the emotional body. And that how they do that is with transcending the limitations of nightmare. How you do that is when you're presented with a nightmare, something, a character or a place that is scary, whatever it is, you're really dealing with vulnerability. So if you're feeling vulnerable in any way, and this is the thing, you're vulnerable in your own world. So you're scared of yourself. So once you break that fear, you're breaking into another layer of yourself, another layer of capabilities in that realm. And you're going to be able to do this in little increments over time. You're going to have big jumps in certain dreams, but the real thing that happens is that this day to this day to this day to this day, all these days that you're having dreams, because you're also dreaming when you're awake too. So when you go into the sleep space dream, you're like consciously dreaming in your subconscious as your subconscious self in your subconscious realm. So you're like awakened. It's like your waking space of your resting or sleeping realm, or your that's what it is. It's like your linear interpretation of reality in the non-linear realm. Whereas when you're awake, you have a linear interpretation of your reality within the linear realm or the conscious realm. So when you're in the non-linear space or the subconscious realm, in order to have a deeper non-linear or subconscious dream space, you have to be able to turn your linear interpretations of reality all the way down to barely on. It has to be barely on. The volume of your linear conscious reality has to be tuned all the way down to between 0 and 1. When you're awake, you're already at a 10. You're going. When you tap into psychedelics or other things that alter your reality, you kind of tune that down, that conscious space down a little bit from between 1 and 10. And that's what creates those access points of what they call tripping out and stuff like that. So it's somewhere in between there. But your solid state is just like a 10, a linear 10, where you're completely vested into your conscious reality and you're rolling. That's the zone. You can access this zone with substances and stuff like that, or different kind of medicines. But for example purposes, this is the kind of scale that you're working with. So yeah, so you have to turn that knob all the way down to like 0 point whatever. And when you do that, you're still anchored. You still have an access point. You're still, in a sense, awake, but you have fully vested your energy and awareness in the silent space or the non-linear space. And you can only do that over time with experience. It takes years and years and years to be able to turn that volume all the way down. And once you get it all the way down, you find this happy space or this happy medium that allows you to attain lucidity in dreams like you've never done before. It's easier to hold dream space. You can communicate with dream characters. You can access dream realm spaces. You can communicate with beings, with people who have passed, people who are still here. You can do all these kinds of things once you tune that linear space down to as close to the nonlinear as you can get. That takes time. Breaking the nightmares takes time. And when you complete these lessons, like challenging yourself to face these nightmares, this is a part of tuning that non-linear down, because the fear and the emotions within reacting to those nightmares is a linear concept in that dream space. Especially your emotions are focused. They have your focus on one little thing, and your emotions become your reality. So if your emotions are easily becoming your reality in the waking space, then they're easily going to become exponentially going to become more of a challenge in the dream space, because you haven't even dealt with it on the baseline level, the easier linear level, because it's very difficult in a sense to tap into your dream space in many different ways. So if you can't do it on an easy space, it's going to be difficult to do it on a harder space. So what this is doing is when you're transcending that, when you're playing with those knobs and when you're activating a deeper part of your nonlinear self, you're creating more abilities to access these access points that are in this more complex place we call dreams. And focusing that energy, focusing that attention, and transcending those experiences, like I said before, creates this sort of rite of passage that you break through. And I remember this as a kid too. I remember not having the weight of nightmares anymore, breaking through that fear and being like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to sleep right now. If I encounter a nightmare, I'm gonna fuck that shit. I'm gonna fuck that shit up. Like nothing can fuck with me anymore. Last night I faced this werewolf. Last night I faced this sorcerer. Last night or the night before I faced this, whatever it is, and I beat them. I destroyed them. Or I've died so many times in dreams that death doesn't scare me anymore. That's a level. That's something that you've transcended. I was sharing with a friend of mine just last night that in my dreams, since I was a child, I've died in so many different ways, hundreds and hundreds of times, consciously in that space, like aware of death, hundreds and hundreds of times. I remember as a kid starting to count when I was a little bit older, like 11, 12, once I started to teach my younger brother and sister how to become lucid in dreams. It was around 12, 13 years old. They were younger. They were 8 and 6 years younger than me, but they wanted to know about dreams, and I was an experienced dreamer. So I created a way to explain to them how to trigger lucidity in dreams. And I've shared this. I'll share it real quick now. But I've shared it in previous videos, and I have a playlist for dreams specifically that's linked in the description here, so you can check that out for all this other stuff. I've shared dreams and other access capabilities and stuff like that. But real quickly, the dream space is based upon your ability to differentiate between the linear and the non-linear and so many other things, but that's the main thing, the linear and the non-linear, because that triggers your access. You're like, oh shit, I'm in a dream. So when you find ways to trigger that space or that awareness, you're finding different ways to add more time to that experience. So one thing that I've noticed in dreams, especially as a kid, because it was such a part of our reality, is that 9 times or 8 times out of 10, you're going to be somewhere around a TV, or the TV is so much a part of your reality, or was as a kid, that you have an ability to get to a place where a TV is. And TVs are crazy in dreams because TVs are little boxes of micro realities. When you're watching a TV, when you're watching TV, you're watching a world. And it's very similar for some people not being able to see words or read words in the dream. The TV is a world in the dream that's similar to that. So when you get closer to looking at those words, a lot of people can't see them, and it'll mess with them and it'll wake them up. Same thing with the TV. Once you start focusing on the TV, it'll get fuzzy and you'll start to wake up. And that's an access point right there. If you can hold that space, then you can add more time to that dream space, and then you can create a moment in time to become lucid. So what I've realized was that as a kid, when I saw a TV in the dream, it was a trigger point for me. Kind of like how people talk about lights, and you can flick on and off the lights. TVs were trigger points for me because I would walk straight up to the TV and go touch it. As soon as you touch that TV, you start to physically become more lucid in the dream space because you can feel texture. You normally wouldn't touch the TV in the waking space, so it's something a little different, but something happens when you touch, because you're touching another world. that is moving, that is changing, that is whatever it's doing, it's there. And it's not the same as the TV. It's never going to be the same in your waking space. So you're picking up all these details. So in order to become lucid in that space, something that makes it easier is to add more senses to it. So we would play video games. At that time, Super Nintendo had just came out. So the video game would stay on, whereas old Nintendo, it would just turn off every now and again. But you could stay and listen to music, and parts of that world, and a video game is another world. You can stay in that space, and while you're asleep, you hear the music with your physical ears and your linear ears in your non-physical sleep space. So if you could tap into that linear moment in the non-linear realm, then you can become lucid if you're comfortable there and if you can hold that space. So one thing that makes the dream unstable is to have something in the linear space affecting your non-linear sleep space. So one thing that does that is music. So this is why when you hear music or hear somebody speaking while you're asleep, it can affect your dream sometime. It can become part of your dream. So music in video games, because we would like take naps while playing video games and leave the video game on. We build like clubhouses around the TV and shit like that. And then we would just like sometimes fall asleep with the video game on. Now I would tell them, hey, if you're doing that, have you ever heard the video game music in your dream? And they're like, yeah. And I have too. So I would tell them, okay, when you do that, find out where the music is coming from in the dream. Look for the TV, walk up to it, because the TV will not have that game playing on that TV. Something else will be playing. And when you touch that TV and still have the triggering of the linear space with the music from your waking space, it creates this sort of unstable moment in time that allows you to become more stable, because that time is now made up of linear and non-linear time, all in that one moment. You're giving yourself more time to become lucid, because you're holding on to that linear observation without allowing it to consume your consciousness. So once I taught them how to do that, they picked it up real quick and they started to become lucid in their dreams very quickly. And they use that as a tool to access things, to fly, to do all things, because they were asking me. That was the main thing why I started teaching them how to become lucid in dreams, is because they were asking me how to fly. They had naturally had some flying dreams, and they were just like, how do I do that again? Well, are you doing this? I'm like, yeah, I do that all the time. Been doing that since I was real young. How do I do that? I'm like, okay. So I started to teach them how to do that, and it worked. They were doing it every day, and we would talk about it. And just to communicate, this is another part of it too. Communicating what you're doing in the dream space, in the waking space, is also creating a better connection, because you are activating parts of your waking space brain, in a sense, your linear reality, that is anchored in the depths of the dream space. So you're creating those relationships, those non-linear dream space relationships. You're creating a more solid foundation in your waking space, which makes it exponentially deeper in your dream space. And this is happening, like I said before, you're dreaming when you're awake too. So when you're doing that, we're not even, in a sense, we're not even aware how much we're doing once we tap into that. We're doing more than we're even aware of. So you could see how that training of the becoming more lucid can activate and help you. It'll affect your entire dream space relationship. And the more you do that, the more you find ways to do that, the deeper it is that you're going to be able to go, and the more comfortable you will be with that dream space overall and yourself. So it just continues to grow on itself over time. And as you get more and more into this realm, you're going to have more and more challenges you're going to be faced with. And I've had challenges within the last, 6 years, 7, 8 years that I didn't even know were available as a child. Because you just work your way through it and you get to certain point. So, real quickly, this rite of passage of nightmares is not the only one. There's a lot of other things that are there that allow you to go deeper. And one of the things are, like I said, one of them is to be able to transcend the emotional space of reacting to nightmares in your dream. And another one is, and like I said, that's dealing with your emotional body. So you are having a linear response to a nonlinear experience, and that breaks the dream. That's one thing. Once you transcend that, you can have longer dreams, you can have longer access to becoming more lucid, and then that'll take some years and years, and then something else will happen. That's dealing with the emotional body. Mostly. It's not only that, though, because there's a deeper layer. There's something more intense than nightmares in dreams that allows you to go even further. One of these things that I've noticed in dreams that is way more intense than nightmares is the emotion itself. So the nightmare triggers an emotional response with fear. But that's not the only emotional response that you could have that can trigger you or keep you from going deeper into dream. One of the most, if not the most intense things that I've ever experienced in dream has been experiencing grief in dreams. And before I get into that, I'll explain how experiencing happiness in dreams also exists, but it doesn't seem as much of a challenge or something to achieve in reference to grief. But the point is, in sharing happiness and laughter in dreams, is that if you notice in dreams, when you laugh or happy or on a roll with, laughter, the intensity of that laughter, that emotion is exponential. It's thousands and thousands of times more intense. When you're laughing, you can add to laughter. You're laughing with you're laughing with parts of you didn't even know existed. So your laughter is so much more. You can feel the joy outside of your body because you're not limited to a physical body in your nonlinear space. So you can feel your laughter down the street. You can feel your body like you generating energy. That's what all that intensity is in the dream. Now you can feel that as laughter, right? Now imagine that as grief. That's intense. The grief that you experience in dreams is no different than that happiness or laughter in dream. It is fucking intense. I've been stuck in a ball of grief for hours in a dream, and I couldn't get out. I could not get out. It was just because you know how long dreams last in a short amount of time. And to experience that grief for that long is, you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. It's intense. But the thing with that is that just like nightmares, you're transcending and you're opening up a part of yourself in that nonlinear realm that you wouldn't be able to do if you hadn't had already transcended that nightmare, that fear experience. You wouldn't be able to get into experiencing grief if you hadn't first experienced that fear first. And that grief is another access point once you transcend it, because it's another part of your emotional space, your emotional body, that keeps you from going to depths if you are consumed by it. So in the middle of this, because it took so long, in the middle of this ball of grief that lasted intensely for so long. I mean, just it like I said, if you're laughing in dreams and it feels so amazing, imagine crying in dreams from grief. It is, yeah, yeah. There's no way to even explain it. But the thing is, when you're experiencing that, like I've said, you're creating access points and you're anchoring your relationship with that realm and yourself in a place that once you do it and then revisit that space, you're a different person and the place is a different place. So you're like starting over in a sense. You're in a different world as a different avatar in a sense. And what I've noticed after having experienced that challenge is that all the other complexities that are available in the dream space are now a little closer to you. They're a little bit more tangible. You can reach out and touch them a little more. Whereas before you could just see them. If you could see them at all. Because sometimes you can unlock stuff that you didn't even know was available. So one thing that I've noticed that happened right after my brother had passed, it was 3 days after that he passed that I finally had a dream with him. And like I've explained with different people that your dreams, the dream isn't just not like it's not a linear thing. It's not like, oh, I'm in a dream. There's the dream itself, the dream space is just the doorway. But like I said, when you get in there, you have the ability to do different things, go to different worlds, communicate with different beings, communicate with a deeper layer of yourself. And that's a different world. It's a different vibration, for lack of a better word. And it's not limited. The word dream itself takes away from actually what you're really doing there. So the thing that I noticed in that space when I was communicating with my brother in dreams after having transcended that grief, that emotional body experience, after having done that, what I realized is that it opened up a channel to communicate with beings that in a way wasn't there before. There was a block there. The block was existing because my emotional body was so much a part of my reality, and with that experience in particular was not allowing my brother who had come through, and this would happen with other people who had passed too, but since my brother was so close to me, when he would come through in dreams in the beginning, since I was so emotionally triggered in the dream space, because sometimes, and this is another side thing too, sometimes when you have dreams with people who have passed, you're having a dream with a part of yourself that is having a visual of that person, and then sometimes you're having a dream with the actual energy of that person. That is no way to prove that. I can't say that this is a scientifically proven. No. Only through my experience can I share with you that this is a real thing. And it's more complex even than what I'm explaining, but this is a very real observation. When you are with certain people in your dreams, specifically when people who have passed, like I said, and I'll say this to emphasize it, and there could be more, and there are more perspectives than this, but two main perspectives that do exist are the one that, like I said, you're having a dream as yourself, with yourself. Energetically, it's all yourself. But your loved one is there. That's a dream you can have. That's a type of dream you can have. There's another type of dream that you can have where you're in a space. Let's say you're just like in a room somewhere and you're still there, but the access points are not completely filled. There's still something there. And that opening allows other energies that you're familiar with to come into that space. When this happens, you have to it's still you. So you have to make the choice to be a part of that. Like, in a sense, you have to almost invite that energy into that reality. And this is where I kind of get hesitant to explain to people, because it's not limited. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's dangerous. It just has the potential to, there could be some trickery going on there. But in that space, like in your waking space, your intuition is on point. In your dream space, your intuition is also on point and more intense. And you can only have that intuition be like fire in that space if you've been dreaming for a long time. So, like I said, the point with this is that you're never going to be put in a space by another being in the dream space, because you're the dreamer. You're in a control of the realm. So if anything like that is happening, it's because you're doing it to yourself. But when you're opening up to channels, beings, people that have been close to you, that connection is still there. It's still alive. And since you're dealing with another world, there are rules to that world. And one of the rules are that you cannot just force yourself into somebody else's dream. They have to invite you into that space. And when you invite another dreamer into your dream, it becomes more complex and it starts to change as a world. It's different than you dreaming as the visual, with the visual of your loved one. It creates a different world. And I wanted to emphasize the difference between those two worlds, because it's very important to realize that, because it now shows you that there are other worlds that act and interact like that. So in the beginning, when he had passed, and I hadn't gone through the depths of processing that emotional energy and tapping into the depths of that transition, because I hadn't done that yet, there was little to no communication. There was the communication was being able to show up, because I knew this was his presence, but he wasn't able to speak. And this has been confirmed with other people that I've talked to about this, who have had people that pass and then have come into dream. They'll present themselves to you, but they won't speak because it triggers too much and it'll break the dream. So what they will do when you're in that space is that they will make themselves known. They will be present, but they will not add too much to the experience so as not to break the dream. Because if anybody's going to break the dream, it's going to be you. Because it's hard enough to even hold that space, let alone be able to communicate in that space. So the few dreams that I've had for weeks, I think it was actually months, I've had several dreams right after he passed, with my brother, where he was present. Some were me having him as a visual, some were him actually being there. And like I said, I could feel the difference in the world, in the realm, that, that explains that that's what was going on. But over time, I got more comfortable with that space and him being there and what was going on. And eventually he started to speak and I would be able to communicate. There was another time, and I've shared a whole video on this. He invited me into a world that he had painted. The whole world, the whole place was like white, like a canvas. It was fucking intense because he was an artist, painter, draws specifically. So this was a key to trigger me into realizing that this was his world and his involvement in this dream space. That was one of the more intense dreams that has happened since he passed. But yeah, it was crazy. I've explained that before. Now I remember the whole dream now, but this video's gone on long enough, and I really wanted to focus on the concept of being able to transcend and communicate and stuff like that with dreams. So I'll end it on this. If you want to see that story, go ahead and click on the video in the playlist below. But anyway, what I was sharing with my friend just recently was that because he had shared with me that the same thing was happening. He would see his brother in the space and then he wouldn't speak. And what I experienced is that either it wouldn't speak or the dream wouldn't last too long. And then, like I said, the reason why it's happening like that is because what you're holding on to in that dream space is breaking the dream. So you are blocking their communication with you because your emotional body is not allowing you to receive that communication or that energy. Your emotions are too loud. That's what it is. And when your emotions are too loud, or any part of you is too loud, ego's a part of this too. When it's too loud, you'll wake up. Once you get in a closer relationship with yourself, your emotions, and so on and so forth, through experience in dreams and the waking space, then you can have more communication, then you can have more access, and that's when more of them can come through. And I've had this with, other family members who have passed too. So, to sum it all up and close it all out, your access in dreams in reference to communicating with beings who have passed and also communicating with deeper parts of yourself, your ability to access that space is based upon your relationship with your emotional body in your linear and non-linear experience, your conscious and subconscious reality. If you are heavily anchored in your ego, heavily anchored in your emotional body, you will block out parts of your dreams because they're just too intense. Some dreams are just so crucial and needing to be a part of your reality that they will just force themselves through. They were pushed because it's you pushing your experience to the surface in order to deal with it. And everybody's dreaming, so you're constantly having this. It's just that this world that you're in right now is so vibrant, it's so thick. This is why mind control is such a big deal. This is why TV and video games is such a big deal, because it's not that they're consuming your time when you're awake. They're consuming your time when you're asleep. They're affecting your dreams. It's programming your subconscious. So this is affecting a part of your higher self, a bigger part of you. This is why dreams, because these non-physical entities and these physical entities, they're aware of this shit. They're aware of our non-physical capabilities in existence. And if you think that they're doing mind control in the waking space and they're not doing mind control in the subconscious space, then you're severely mistaken. They know that your physical actions are seeded by your non-physical downloads and keeping you from accessing that energy, activating and working on yourself in those places is a way to maintain control over you. This is why dreams are such a threat. This is why people who access these points, because, and I'll get into this in later videos, I have in previous videos, I've been in places, I've communicated and I've tapped into things that were in a sense like off limits. You can see how there are like military bases in the waking space. Well, there's shit like that in the sleep space too. And you can access it. You have keys. This is what you're doing. You're activating keys when you're doing this stuff. And those keys are like skeleton keys, like dream world skeleton keys. You can use them to access deeper parts of yourself and help out with yourself, but sometimes you can venture out into different worlds and different places. Like I said, you can have beings come into your space if you go there, where you can also travel and go into other spaces too if you have the keys. And they don't like that. I've had beings, I've heard shit. I've heard actual people, whatever it is, say literally, stop that. Stop him right now. Get him out of here. And then me having to, adjust in that space, but having complete control. Like, you can imagine a lucid dream, like a lightweight lucid dream. Well, imagine like a heavy duty lucid dream and then being in like an experience like that. It's a trip. So this is another threat to the waking space controlling establishment, is to tapping into your dream. It's no different than them criminalizing psychedelics, cannabis, and anything else that's out there that allows you to expand a deeper part of yourself. It's the same thing. So transcending the emotional body is a forever complex type experience that allows you deeper access points to your dream space. And like I said, once you get to these places, you get to work on them over a certain amount of time. And once you reach that level, like in a video game, you have to reach like the end boss. You have to do something with the end boss, and that end boss is a part of yourself, but it's also the world that you're tapping into. So the challenges of the world that you're tapping into are also going to challenge you once you get to that point. And the thing is, once you're challenged to do that, you're breaking open a part of yourself, and you're breaking open those worlds and gaining those keys to access other parts of those worlds. You can't do that if you're constantly running away from your dream. Facing your nightmares, facing your emotional body, facing your ego, facing your demons, facing everything that you're dealing with allows you to access deeper parts of the dream space. And part of that is being able to communicate with loved ones who have passed, loved ones who are still alive. But what really trips people out is being able to see loved ones who have passed, because, it's heavy, it's intense. But like I'm saying, there's an intelligence in that communication. There's an intelligence, there's an experience, a very important experience that's a part of that communication. And once you transcend that, you'll start to have access to them and yourself that you didn't have before. Like I said, a perfect example of this is in the beginnings of having dreams with someone who have passed. For example, my brother who passed. In the beginning, to explain how you're working on this process, what they will do is they will hold back levels of their communication and interaction in order to allow you to become climatized with the space, with the realm itself, with them being there, because you have to get used to it. It's another energy that's there. If you don't do that, then you'll kind of shut the door on that. You'll close it down, and then you won't have that access. But you can do that. You can constantly have that communication. Like when you go to sleep, you can say like, I want to do this, and you'll do that. Whether you remember it or not, you're going to do that. And when you do that over and over and over again, you're training yourself. You're going to the gym. This is like the Dream Gold's gym. You're going there to work out, and you're going to get stronger. And when you get stronger, you can lift certain things. You can run for longer. You can breathe deeper. You can hold your breath longer underwater. Like you can see all these analogies that are close to what you're actually doing in that dream space. And the underwater thing is another good example. I've had underwater dreams with family members too, but without as well. But underwater dreams, it automatically wake you up, right? Because what the hell are you doing under there? You're gonna die. But in the dream space, you're not, because in the dream world, you can actually breathe underwater. I've done this on more than one occasion, to where I get through the fear. I'm like, oh shit. And then, but once you realize in that moment of oh shitness, you can see that, hey, I'm in a dream. And then once you hold that space for long enough, now you can start walking and allowing that dream to continue on. This is another challenge that you're doing, and it gives you keys and access and stuff like that. But you wouldn't be able to like walk underwater or swim underwater if you are subjected to your emotional body. But you can. But it takes practice. So anyway, if you're interested in closing, if you're interested in communicating with your loved ones who have passed in your dream space, this is one way to do it. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes a focus. Think of yourself as going to the gym and being, severely overweight because you haven't been working out, you haven't been working on your dreams. Be patient with yourself and know that each time you're dreaming, whether you realize it or not, with that focus and with that intention to be better, you're getting better. You're getting stronger. You're losing that weight that blocks you from going further, from running faster, from flying higher. You're losing that weight, but it takes time. So I'd be interested in hearing what people have to say in reference to this. This is probably my favorite topic to expand upon. And if you have any examples, if you know what I'm talking about, have examples, whatever it is, go ahead and leave it in the comment. And I'll be making future videos that will go into a deeper breakdown of this experience in the near future, because this is a good starting point and there's a lot of stuff that I missed. So yeah, go ahead and leave a comment and I'll see you in the dream world.